The modern era of mixed martial arts has given us some of the greatest sporting matchups in the history of fighting. However, we have also had to accept the idea that some of our dream matchups will not happen. Join us in this video as we break down a dream matchup between the lightweight GOAT, Khabib Nurmagomedov, and the welterweight GOAT, Kamaru Usman. Don't forget to stick around until the end to get our official prediction on just who walks away with the victory if these two face off inside the UFC's octagon. Khabib Nurmagomedov retired from the UFC following an impressive submission victory over Justin Gaethje at UFC 254 in October 2020. This left the Eagle with a perfect record of 29 wins and 0 losses. The victory over Gaethje was his third straight title defense, following impressive victories over Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. While many fans respected his decision to spend more time with his family, others couldn't help but fantasize about various fights that never happened. One of the most talked about ideas is, what if Khabib had moved up to welterweight? Could he have dominated just as he did at lightweight? Would this have allowed him to follow in the footsteps of various UFC fighters and attain the status of champ? Or would a move up in weight have finally given the Dagestani wrestler his first loss? One dream matchup that many of us certainly imagine is, what if Khabib took on the most dominant powerhouse of the welterweight division, that was Kamaru Usman? Both men are considered the GOATs of their individual divisions, but what would happen if they met inside the octagon? Let's find out. But before we dive into the strengths and weaknesses of each fighter, let's first discuss their backstories and how they rose to become such dominating champions. Khabib Nurmagomedov has one of the most interesting stories in all of MMA. He grew up in the mountainous regions of a small town in Russia, when his father, Abdulmanap, moved the family from Sildi to Kiraval. He converted the ground floor of a 2-story building into a gym, and this is where Khabib first gained the desire to fight. As with all young Dagestani children, Khabib began wrestling at the young age of 8. He continued practicing wrestling as well as judo and sambo throughout his teenage years and excelled in all of the mixed martial arts. Khabib will become a 2-time sambo world champion before making a transition over to MMA. The Eagle would go on to make his professional debut in September 2008 at just 20 years old. Khabib fought in various regional promotions throughout Russia and Ukraine and quickly gained attention for his dominant performances. Over the first 3 years of his career as a pro, Khabib earned 11 finishes in 12 fights. This included a first-round armbar victory over future Bellator title challenger Shambalad Shamhalaliyev, amassing a record of 16 wins and 0 losses. In late 2011, Nurmagomedov eventually got the call from the UFC, and he would sign a 6-fight deal with the promotion. The Eagle made his highly anticipated UFC debut on the 20th of January 2012, where he defeated Kamal Shaloras by the way of a submission in the 3rd round. Khabib continued dominating inside the octagon and went on an 8-fight win streak, defeating opponents such as Rafael dos Anjos and Michael Johnson, which led him to his first title shot at UFC 223 in 2018. After winning all 5 rounds on the judges' scorecard, Khabib became the new lightweight champion and the first ever Dagestani to hold a UFC title. Khabib would go on to defend his title against the division's most formidable competitors, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, over the next 2 years, finishing each of his opponents by way of submission. After the Gaethje fight, the Eagle decided it was time to hang up the gloves and retire undefeated. With that being said about Khabib, let's find out the backstory of Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman was born in Auchi, Nigeria, but moved to the United States when he was 8 years old. He became interested in wrestling during his sophomore year and went on to amass a record of 53 wins and 3 losses as a senior. He continued to wrestle throughout his college years and even became the NCAA Division II national champion back in 2010. After college, Usman dreamed of making the 2012 Olympic team and became a resident of the United States Olympic Training Center in hopes of accomplishing his dream. Unfortunately, a string of injuries led to Usman abandoning his dream, and instead he turned his attention to mixed martial arts. The Nigerian debuted in November of 2012, and after compiling a record of 5 wins and 1 loss, he was selected to participate in Season 21 of The Ultimate Fighter. Usman was impressive throughout the series and made it to the final, where he faced off against Haydar Hassan. The Nigerian Nightmare would become the UFC's next Ultimate Fighter after earning an impressive submission victory over his opponent, earning himself a UFC contract in the process. Usman made his UFC debut against Leon Edwards in December 2015 and impressed fans with a well-earned decision victory. After this, Usman would go on a 7-fight win streak, beating well-known fighters such as Sean Strickland, Damian Maia and Rafael dos Anjos. This earned him a shot at Tyrone Woodley's title at UFC 235. Usman would put on quite the performance and went on to defeat Woodley by way of decision, becoming the new welterweight champion in the process. Over the next few years, Usman would defend his title on 5 separate occasions, defeating Colby Covington twice, as well as finishing off both Jorge Masvidal and Gilbert Burns by way of TKO. Unfortunately, Usman was finished by Leon Edwards in the 5th round of their fight in 2022, and he would later lose the rematch by way of a decision. Nonetheless, he is still considered one of the greatest welterweights in the history of the UFC. Now that we have the two fighters' backstory, let's dive into their strengths and weaknesses, starting with Khabib. Strength number 1, wrestling. Khabib undoubtedly has one of the best wrestling games we've ever seen in the UFC. His efficiency in the clinch and grappling experience enables him to effortlessly take down most opponents, even those trained in grappling defense. The Eagle knew how to apply forward pressure to back his opponent up, and here is where he would shoot in for a takedown, being successful on many occasions. We've seen Khabib primarily use 2 techniques during his takedown attempts. More often than not, he'll shoot in for a single leg and drive his head into the opponent's hip. Or he may decide to work his opponent to the cage and grab and lock up the body or begin working on upper body attacks, both of which have been highly successful over his career. Khabib's elite level of wrestling allowed him to utilise these takedown techniques in almost every one of his fights. What we saw time and time again is that anyone who got taken down by the Dagestani very rarely returned to their feet. The dominance Khabib was able to enforce during the grappling exchanges often left opponents powerless and gassed. Strength number 2, physical strength. While Khabib's wrestling often overshadows his other attributes, his physical strength is another reason he is so dominant inside the octagon. His grip strength allows him to hold the arms and wrists of his opponents, and the squeeze he can achieve with his leg muscles ensures that even the toughest of opponents struggle to break free from his grasp. Had Khabib tried to move up the welterweight division and fight against a larger opponent such as Kamaru Usman, this would undoubtedly be an advantage. On top of his physical strength, Khabib's ability to hold these positions for an extended period of time was only possible because of the high-level endurance the Dagestani fighter has. Strength number 3, underrated striking. As well as an impressive grappling game, Khabib grew to become a well-balanced striker. While it may seem aesthetically rough around the edges, he was able to knock down Conor McGregor with a powerful and well-timed overhand right and even put up a good fight against Poirier on the feet when they fought. Khabib's striking often comes as a surprise element which fighters are sometimes unprepared for. During Khabib's prime, he became a well-balanced fighter with no glaring holes in his game. He could wrestle, strike, and had a gas tank. Unlike many in the division, this is why we have decided that there is no weakness that could be exploited in a fight against the Dagestani. Now that we have broken down the 3 major strengths of Khabib, let's dive into those of Usman. Strength number 1, wrestling. Just like Khabib, Usman is known for his high-level grappling. Usman's raw strength and power combined with his high-level grappling techniques makes his takedowns almost impossible to fight against. Every aspect of the Nigerian's grappling game is menacing. He is able to transition from inside trips to slams, and how dominant he can be in his double leg takedown has led fans to suggest that his level of dominance in the wrestling department is almost comparable to Khabib. One thing that would undoubtedly help Usman in a fight against Khabib is his impeccable takedown defense. But before the fight with Leon Edwards at UFC 278, Usman had never been taken down in the UFC. In his prime, it would be tough to say whether or not even the Eagle could have taken him to the ground. Strength number 2, cardio and efficiency. For a man as big and jacked as Usman, he is also one of the best gas tanks in the UFC. He pushes forward with relentless pressure, and when he gets a sniff that his opponent might be gassing out, this is when he really begins to come along. Usman's gas tank should be considered an elite weapon in itself and essential to his style. This would play a huge role in a fight against Khabib, for it's generally when fighters begin to get tired that the Eagle starts to dominate. But in a fight against Usman, who seems to have an everlasting tank, could Khabib control him like he did many of the lightweight contenders? Strength number 3, underrated striking. Similar to Khabib, Usman has an underrated striking game. But if we look back, he's earned 2 impressive knockout finishes over Colby Covington and Gilbert Burns. If he was to stand toe-to-toe with Khabib, we would have to give Usman the benefit of the doubt and say there's a good chance he could finish the Eagle. When it comes to Usman's weaknesses, again, during his prime, he had no obvious weakness that left him exposed to serious threats. He could use his wrestling and strength to dominate opponents, but his hands were just as devastating. Now that we've broken down both fighters' strengths and weaknesses, it's time for our official prediction. But before we do that, we hold a monthly shout out on our channel, and all you need to do to enter is comment "I sub" in the comment section below. So make sure to comment and you'll be in with a chance of winning. So if our dream matchup did come to fruition and Khabib faced off against Usman during their prime at welterweight, we believe the Nigerian Nightmare would have handed the Eagle his first loss. Kamaru Usman was far more dangerous in the striking department during his career. On top of this, he is better disciplined and would hold a single strength advantage even over Khabib. However, Usman's tendency to turn onto all fours when trying to defend a takedown attempt could very well land him in deep waters with Khabib. While it would have the potential to be a great matchup in which 2 elite wrestlers in their prime would show off their elite techniques, we believe that the outcome may mirror Usman's fight against Gilbert Burns. Khabib may find himself in a spot where he couldn't apply his usual heavy pressure on the Nigerian, and in return, Usman would be the dominant force. A prime Kamaru Usman most likely defeats a prime Khabib in all outcomes.